just to win the starting job. You could also bet that market quarterback to take week one snap. The problem is, last I saw, Russ was like minus 350 or something like that.
Right.
What do you think about Russ and the Steelers this year, though? We haven't really hit them yet.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier with Mike DeFabo from The Athletic. You're hearing really good things come out of Steelers camp about Russell. And my guess is he is extremely motivated to shut Sean Payton up and really to prove to Sean Payton that he had Russ all wrong and that he was not the problem in Denver. And so I think, you take all those things in consideration. He's organizing, these throw-in sessions with the receivers on the roster. I mean, that could have gone one of two ways, right, Ryan? I mean, you could have said, I don't care. I'm just taking the paycheck. Like, this is the only place that would have given me a starting job. Or you could do what Russell Wilson seems to be doing, which is being all in and trying to, take the Steelers back to the playoffs, right, for, another year. So I don't know. I think it's a lot to ask of them to, for example, win the division. But do I think a motivated Russ can do enough not turn? I mean, they had Kenny Pickett last season, right? And Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, and it's just you don't have to be much better, and they were still in the playoffs. So I think they're probably going to be there in the mix for the playoffs as a wild card, and I think that's probably their ceiling. But I think they're decently likely to reach it.
You know what's crazy too, man, is I agree. Like, if you're Russ, you want to go out and you want to shut Sean Payton up. But like, if I would have told you, if I would tell the casual fan, Russ Wilson last year was top 10 in touchdown passes, which he was, 26 touchdown passes, and only threw 8 picks, I think people would think that's crazy. But like, he wasn't even that bad last year. The Broncos were just a mess. But I'm looking at his numbers, 17 and a half passing touchdowns. I mean, if he starts every single game, he's going to clear that easily. And it's even money to the over, minus 125 to the under. So I would only go over. I mean, again, he threw 26 in Denver last year without a real number one wide receiver. Passing yards, 2,700, I'd probably stay away from. I'm not going to bet him to lead the league in yards or anything like that, looking at any of these markets. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, even with that schedule, if Pittsburgh won 9-10 games.
Right.
They've done it with Duck Hodges. They've done it with Mason Rudolph. Ben, those last 3 years, was so bad. He was like a corpse of himself, man. He couldn't move in the pocket. And Russ, man, like, coming off a pretty solid season. The thing I would worry about, age, injury, if I was going to play like season-long props or do anything with the Steelers. Also, I would assume there's at least going to be some packages for Justin Fields, because I'm not ready to write Justin Fields the football player.
No,
you're like,
yeah.
Like, he's not your classic drop-back quarterback and never was going to be. He just got absolutely hosed in Chicago because that offensive line was an XFL offensive line, let's be honest, brutal. They fixed it up a little bit now in Chicago, but that's still the question mark I have for them going into the season. DJ Moore I absolutely love, but before that, like, Mooney was his number one wide receiver and Cole Kmet. And the Getsy offense just didn't make sense for Justin Fields. Justin Fields needs to be running like the Greg Roman type offense, dude. Quarterback power, put him in the best position to succeed. So I wouldn't be shocked if Arthur Smith had some packages for him. That's the other concern I have for everybody involved in the offense in Pittsburgh is, which Arthur Smith are we getting? Are we getting the Arthur Smith from Tennessee that was a really solid coordinator that got a high coaching gig? Or are we getting the guy that wouldn't give the ball to Bijan Robinson, didn't know how to use Kyle Pitts? That's what concerns me a little bit doing anything with the Steelers, man.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think we're going to get the Tennessee Titans iteration of Arthur Smith. My guess is, as the head coach, you never know how guys are going to react, right, when they get the head coaching job. And some guys really wear and feel that pressure, and others don't. Obviously, when you're just an offensive coordinator, you're going to probably feel a lot less because it's not you that has to go in there and answer questions after losses. That's going to be on Mike Tomlin. So I think you are going to see a lot more, freedom in terms of, using the best pieces in that offense from Arthur Smith. And Yeah, I think it's silly. It's silly not to utilize Justin Fields. I mean, he's got too much ability, to just sit there and let him rot on the bench. That makes no sense.
Mike, I actually want to start with the quarterback position. Justin Fields comes over from Chicago. Russell Wilson actually didn't have a bad season last year. Everything else just kind of went to hell for the Broncos year one for Sean Payton. Who do you expect to win that job, and when do you expect the decision to be made?
Yeah, the way that Mike Tomlin has described this throughout the offseason is to say that Russell Wilson is in pole position. Now, people who like Justin Fields in Pittsburgh have been quick to point out that just because a race car driver wins pole position doesn't mean that he wins the race. But, based on what we've seen through organized team activities and mandatory minicamp, not only did Russell Wilson get the overwhelming majority of the first team reps, to me, he really looked like the better quarterback. This guy might not be the same 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback, Super Bowl winning prime that he once was, but you can see that he's a veteran who's been around the league, and just his command of the offense, the way that he's able to work through his progressions, his accuracy, I think really gave him a leg up from above Justin Fields. And the way that I look at this dynamic, I think it's going to take Justin Fields going out in real meaningful preseason games where he's not only auditioning for the Steelers, but also the other 31 teams who might be interested in his services next season. And he's going to have to do something to excite and surprise to change this and turn this into a real competition. Because right now, the way I see it, I would be very surprised if Russell Wilson is not out there taking that snap week one as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So, Mike, I do a show in Memphis, and I'm not trying to name drop, but one of my guys is Calvin Austin III, and I had him in studio last. Yeah, I had him in studio last week, and he was talking about just the leadership that Russ had already sort of shown off the rip. Like he was texting Calvin, talking about how fast he was and how good a day at practice he had, and how he invited the guys over to his house to meet Sierra. Have you sort of heard these things echoed? Like you sort of wonder, right? Like a guy who's as long in the tooth as Russ is. Obviously, it went disastrous in Denver. You sort of wonder about how engaged he is. But just based on what Calvin told me, it sounds like Russ is really locked in and wants to be successful in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say Calvin Austin is one of my favorite guys on the team. He and I chop it up. We talk about chicken wings a lot. I know he misses some of that Memphis barbecue and was looking for some good places to get some wings in Pittsburgh, and I definitely hooked him up with that. But, to your point, I completely agree. I think that there was a knock on Russ that, maybe he rubbed some teammates the wrong way, or maybe there were some personality conflicts there. And what I've seen, so far is it seems like Russell is really going out of his way to ingratiate himself with his teammates. And, you see it in ways big and small. As you mentioned, he organized a lot of off-season type training things. And that was part of the reason why Mike Tomlin put this quote-unquote pole position label on Russ, is because he felt like you need a quarterback in the offseason to organize these things when there aren't formal training opportunities and to help teams get better. And that was part of the reason he did this. But beyond that, you're seeing Russ, like, when we go into the locker room, very often quarterbacks will kind of hide when the media comes. Maybe they're in the film room or something like that. Russ has been very available and accessible to us. You also see him do things like he took Spencer Anderson, whose name I'm sure a lot of people don't know, and for good reason. He's probably like the eighth offensive lineman on the depth chart. The two of those guys just one-on-one went to a Penguins game the one day. And those are the kind of things that Russ, I think, is trying to do right now to try to show himself as a leader, get the guys to believe in him. And I think that that's going to be as much of anything. Mike Tomlin always talked about Kenny Pickett's intangibles. And I think he is a coach that cares about those kind of things. So I think that, as much as anything, is going to help ingratiate himself with his teammates in this new team and help him win that job.